This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
The United Arab Emirates strongly condemned yesterday's attack on the Egyptian capital of Cairo. According to a foreign ministry source, the UAE expressed its solidarity with Egypt and said it will stand by their Egyptian brothers against what it described as evil terror attacks. Several civilians were killed and several others were wounded in the attack. It's a bloody scene that is reminding the Egyptians of previous attacks which targeted foreigners and the tourism industry in the country. The area of Hussein in Egypt was rocked yesterday by a bomb explosion, killing a French woman and injuring more than 20 tourists, most of whom were French citizens. In addition, 4 Egyptians, 3 Saudis and 1 German were also wounded in the attack. The Egyptian authorities arrested today 3 suspects whose nationalities are yet to be determined. Meanwhile, many are questioning the timing of the attack, which targeted a secure area that is usually filled with tourists and foreigners. From Cairo, Ahmed Al-Kilani reports.
The Hussein neighborhood spent the night reflecting on sad images following an explosion that rocked a popular square in the area. A French woman was killed and more than 20 civilians were wounded in the attack, mostly French tourists. 4 Egyptians, 3 Saudis, and 1 German were also amongst the wounded. Meanwhile, eyewitnesses gave different accounts of the way the attack was carried out. While some said that a bomb was thrown from an overlooking hotel's balcony, others said that an explosive device was planted under a stone-carved seat where tourists were waiting to board buses.
We were sitting and watching the game at the cafe when we heard a bomb explosion. I ran outside to the scene where I saw a kid on the ground. He was a kid living on the street. I also saw a man on the street screaming for help that his daughter had been hit and she was slipping away.
An elderly French male tourist also received injuries to his ear. His eardrum was busted and he was bleeding heavily.
It's still too early to point the finger at any certain group. However, many questions are being raised over security in the area. The area usually has a heavy security presence, especially after the 2005 Ashar bombing attacks in the area.
Attackers choose the site for an attack based on the type of attack they plan to carry out. When the attacker finds a weak point in certain places, he usually chooses the place for such an attack. In most cases, the attacker is familiar with such places.
With a great deal of concern, the Egyptians are following the developments of the Hussein bombing attack. They fear that it will reopen the country's file of terrorism, which they thought was permanently and fully closed. Ahmed Al-Kilani, Dubai TV, Cairo.
To comment on the issue, we are joined from Cairo with Dia Rashwan, the head of the Islamic Movements Program at Al-Ahram Center for Political and Strategic Studies. Mr. Dia, how do you interpret this attack in terms of its timing and objectives? It was an attack on the heart of the Egyptian tourism industry.
The incident isn't more important than the incident which was witnessed near the same area nearly 4 years ago, in April 2005. Tourists are being targeted in the areas of Ashar and Hussein, which are usually packed with Arab, foreign, and Muslim tourists. The explosive devices used in these attacks are traditional and not sophisticated. The number of victims in this incident is close to the number of victims in the 2005 attack. Based on the method of execution and based on what the Egyptian authorities have announced, I think this attack was an extension of the 2005 attack. In the 2005 attack, it was said a young man detonated a bomb bomb he was carrying while en route to the area of Hussein, as confirmed by the Egyptian authorities and analysts. This area is a place of gathering for buses which carry tourists on sightseeing trips. It's possible that the bomber of the 2005 attack was trying to bomb the same place but couldn't reach his destination.
Amnesty International accused Israel and the Islamic movement, Hamas, of committing war crimes in the latest war on Gaza. A report by the group states that there is evidence that both sides used foreign weapons to carry out attacks against civilians.
A report by the UN Security Council called for imposing an arms embargo on all sides of this conflict.
A deeper look into the latest war on Gaza.
Amnesty International.
A deeper look by this renowned human rights organization, which is based in London. The observations made by Amnesty International closed with both expected and unexpected conclusions. It accused both Israel and armed Palestinian factions of violating basic human rights laws during the 3-week war. The organization says it found evidence that war crimes were committed, as well as dangerous violations of international human rights law. In Gaza, it found the remnants of weapons, most of which were U.S.-made, among the bomb shrapnel, white phosphorus, and missiles that were found in schools, hospitals, and homes. As for the towns in southern Israel, the report states that missiles were launched randomly. An Amnesty International fact-finding mission, headed by Donatella Rivera, returned from the region with this summary. Israel used white phosphorus and other weapons that were made in the United States to carry out operations that violated international law, including war crimes. Meanwhile, Hamas and other armed Palestinian groups launched hundreds of missiles on civilian areas in Israel, which were either smuggled or locally manufactured. Rivera explained that although Palestinian missiles were far less lethal than Israeli weapons, the launch of such missiles was considered to be war crimes. This analogy is awkward, but what is more awkward was that the occupation army, which is the largest in the region, and a resistance which did not hesitate to confront the attacks of this army on the Gaza Strip and its unarmed civilians, were compared as equals. Whatever the case, Amnesty International is calling for an immediate arms embargo on all sides to ensure that mechanisms were in place to guarantee that no military equipment was used to violate international law. The group's report noted that Israel's and Hamas's position on any agreement would be the same: rejection. Hamas described the report as unjust and did not see the value of comparing the weapons on both sides. Israel viewed the report as very biased and accused it of failing to mention Hamas's use of civilians as a human defense shield.
ومعنا من لندن دوناتيلا ريفيرا رئيسة مركز البحوث.
Joining us from London is Donatella Rivera, the head of the fact-finding center related to Israel and Palestine at Amnesty International. Ms. Donatella, whoever reads the report would conclude that the war was between two states and two equally equipped armies. But the reality is exactly the opposite, and the world knows all the details.
أي شخص يقرأ تقريرنا سيدرك بأننا لا نخلق.
Well, anybody who reads the report will read that we don't make them equal. Now, most of the report focuses on the supply of weapons to the parties. Most of it focuses on supply of weapons from the United States to Israel. Then there is a small part that also talks about the weapons materials that were used by Hamas and other factions in Gaza that were obtained by smuggling through tunnels from Egypt and which were used to target Israeli civilians in southern Israel.
Amnesty International is calling on the UN Security Council to impose a comprehensive weapons embargo on Israel, Hamas, and other armed Palestinian factions. In its report on Operation Cast Lead, Amnesty claims to have found proof that both Hamas and Israel committed war crimes and had deliberately targeted civilians. The Foreign Ministry denounced Amnesty's report, saying it lacked both objective and professional criteria. It said the report ignores the fact that Hamas is a terror organization and is recognized as such by the European Union, the United States, and other countries. The Foreign Ministry stressed that the IDF has never intentionally targeted civilians and that the comparison between Israel and Hamas on matters of weapons procurement was out of place.
The Amnesty report is fundamentally flawed and based on extremely problematic methodology. Firstly, it relies on the data provided by the authoritarian Hamas regime, data that is problematic, that many people have questioned its authenticity. And secondly, the report ignores the complex combat situation, the difficult house-to-house fighting, the fact that Hamas deliberately brutalized the civilian population of Gaza, exploiting that civilian population as a human shield.
The ousted Hamas government in the Gaza Strip has released videos saying that Fatah members confessed that they collaborated with Israel and gave them information against the Palestinian resistance. In Ramallah, Yasser Abed Rabo, the Secretary General of the PLO Executive Committee, has accused the Hamas propaganda machine of poisoning the Palestinian atmosphere.
They had their followers officially go after them and expose the movements of the Palestinian resistance. Then they would transfer the information to Ramallah and then transmit it to the enemy, who would then target certain locations.
It is a new phase of escalation between Hamas and Fatah. Hamas has aired interviews with 3 people saying that they are officers who belong to the Palestinian Authority and they used to collect information in Gaza and then inform Israel, which enabled the Israeli shells to target certain areas in the Gaza Strip.
The officer that I used to call in the Palestinian Intelligence Service Agency in Ramallah is Abu Jamal. He asked me to gather information about certain groups who work for Hamas and receive their salary from Ramallah. In doing so, I sought the help of a person named Rafid al-Zubaydi who fled to Ramallah so he could provide me with the names of the people who we were not sure worked for Hamas or not.
The Palestinian Authority rejects these accusations.
The Hamas propaganda machine is only poisoning the atmosphere. Poisoning the atmosphere is a plan that was suggested by the Hamas leadership in Damascus in order to sabotage the internal Palestinian talks.
This escalation and Hamas accusing the Palestinian Authority of collaboration has made it difficult to advance the Palestinian reconciliation process. Khalid Uwais, Al-Arabiya.
Israel has fired a shell at the center of the Gaza Strip. This came after an Israeli armored patrol vehicle was fired upon. This shell was fired on the eastern part of the Al-Maghazi refugee camp, and there were no casualties. This came after Palestinians fired on an Israeli military patrol vehicle near the security wall between the Gaza Strip and Israel.
More than 1,500 Palestinians have been told to leave their homes in East Jerusalem before they're demolished. The Israeli government says 96 houses in the Silwan neighborhood were built without permits and are therefore illegal. But under international law, Israel's claim to the area is illegal. And East Jerusalem is not considered part of the Israeli capital. Adam Pines reports now on the families refusing to give in to Israeli eviction notices.
In the East Jerusalem neighborhood of Silwan, just below the Old City, some 96 houses have been marked for destruction. The municipality plans to excavate ruins below their homes and establish an archaeological site for tourists. On Sunday, police and officials from the municipality toured the neighborhood, informing residents they will need to leave their homes. They left as soon as the cameras showed up. Hashim Jalajil has lived in this house his entire life. He inherited it from his father, who inherited it from his. He and others in the neighborhood have been trying to fight this decision in the court, which claims the houses were built illegally. He brings out documents from before Israel existed to prove the land is his.
What is happening in Silwan is not logical. I cannot believe this is happening. The police can come any day and just take us out of the house. It is unbelievable. I am 80 years old and there are 52 people living in this house. Where will we go?
Most of the residents of this valley in the Silwan neighborhood have lived here for generations, long before the establishment of the State of Israel. Now this new push by the Jerusalem municipality threatens to leave many homeless. In the Jerusalem municipality, Yakil Segev says the plan will revitalize the East Jerusalem neighborhood and help its residents.
I think developing this area as an archaeological garden, as a touristic site can do a lot of good to the city of Jerusalem and to the people of Silwan. And I think we as a municipality have to find the right solution for those who chose to build their house on this archaeological park, and find the right solution to minimize the damage made to them.
As of yet, no compensation plan has been offered. The residents of Silwan aren't interested anyway. Many Palestinians fear the plan to demolish these homes is part of a greater scheme by the municipality to push Arabs out of Jerusalem and take their land.
This is the first step, because the second, according to the Jerusalem municipality, there is around 15,000 housing is illegal. So they want to start and to see the reaction from this area about what will be happening in the future in another area.
قبل بداية الحديث مع الضيوف نتابع هذا التقرير حول طبيعة التدخلات.
This report details the nature of foreign intervention in Arab affairs and how the political leadership deals with it.
علاقات حسن الجوار، مبدأ السيادة، عدم التدخل والمساس بالشأن الداخلي. عناوين عارضة وركائز متينة لفقرات أو مواد.
Good neighborly relations are the basic principle of sovereignty and the lack of intervention in domestic affairs. These are the major headlines and solid pillars for the articles on international law and the Charter of the United Nations. Even within political blocs and strategic alliances, these foundations are highly detailed and are not tampered with. So, what about these principles and these foundations for the Middle East region, particularly the Arab world?
أو عبر وسطاء أنواع ودرجات مختلفة من التدخلات ليس في البلد.
Different types and degrees of intervention, directly or indirectly, is practiced not just in one country, but it deeply affects all Arab countries. From Iraq to Lebanon to the Sudan and ending with Somalia and the Gaza Strip, the political picture is filled with foreign presence that doesn't only affect that country per se, but also makes it a platform for intervention by its neighbors. Foreign intervention in Arab affairs does not exist in a vacuum. Instead, it relies on a number of entities to pave the road to the heart of the Arab world. This has necessitated an awakening of Arab leaders to save whatever can be saved before time runs out. This awakening requires that these Arab leaders name things as they are, so as to make the picture clear both at home and abroad. It began in Cairo with the Egyptian president Hosni Mubarak and his foreign minister Ahmed Abu al-Ghaith.
وكان على تلك الاستفاقة من القيادات العربية أن تسمي الأشياء بمسمياتها لجعل الصورة أكثر وضوحا في الداخل.
They made clear accusations against countries who interfere in Arab affairs, including the affairs of Iraq, Lebanon, and Palestine. The Egyptian statements were accompanied by a Saudi speech made by the Saudi foreign minister, Saud al-Faisal. He confirmed Egypt's accusations. The Iraqi Prime Minister, Noor al-Maliki, warned against the conspiracies that are hatched in foreign capitals against his government.
الحديث المصري رافقه خطاب سعودي على لسان وزير الخارجية سعود الفيصل أكد فيه الاتهامات والتسميات المصرية. أما رئيس الوزراء العراقي نور المالكي
He demanded that Iraqi commanders use an iron fist against those who desire to meddle in Iraqi affairs. Before the situation reaches a point of no return and Arab division is beyond repair, the custodian of the two noble sanctuaries launched an initiative of reconciliation and forgiveness, which comes at a time when the nations are in dire need of unity. The stagnant relationships and difference in opinions makes it impossible to turn a new page.
لرأب الصدع ورص الصفوف جاءت مبادرة التصالح والتصافح عبر لقاءات جانبية رسم لها خادم.
The capital of Abu Dhabi hosted another meeting, which included 9 Arab foreign ministers, in order to draft a plan that would lead to reconciliation. They emphasized that all Arab affairs, good or bad, must be put in the hands of Arab leaders. The Arab leaders are much more capable of diagnosing the problem rather than finding a solution for it.
لتمهيد الطريق أمام المصالحات والتشديد على أن يكون الشأن العربي بحلوه ومره في يد القادة العرب.
The Arab League has dismissed that this ministerial meeting will be the reason for Arab division, especially because the convening foreign ministers have all stressed the importance of Arab reconciliation based on the principle that will not allow non-Arabs to interfere in Arab affairs.
وأن الوزراء المجتمعين متفقون على ضرورة تحقيق المصالحة العربية وفق قاعدة عدم السماح لأطراف غير عربية بالتدخل.
The Yemeni foreign minister, Dr. Abu Bakr al-Kurdi, has reassured that dialogue, not interfering with the internal affairs of countries, and respecting the interests of all nations is the only way to prevent a return to the era of enemies. Al-Kurdi added, the world of today is in need of international cooperation and partnerships, instead of instigating division amongst nations.
There is a need to fight against the circumstances that force Iraqis into begging, which has become a widespread phenomenon in the country, rather than persecuting them. We leave you with a report from Rula Tamir.
Iraqi authorities have been trying to get rid of the beggars from the streets of Baghdad, but the number of beggars has been rapidly increasing. Many of these street beggars are women that hide their faces to protect their identities. This woman, who has 2 children sitting next to her, she begs, said that her children were orphans, that there was no one to provide for her family.
We do not have a provider in the family. These children are orphans. We do not have money to pay rent. My son, we just don't know what to do. Believe me, I'm forced to do this.
Recently, the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs, in coordination with the Ministry of the Interior and other local authorities, put in place a program to fight the phenomenon of begging. Nejal Majid from the Labor and Social Affairs Department said that the ministry has taken measures aimed at getting rid of begging by providing services for the children, women, and elderly. She did not disclose the nature of these services.
The objective is to get rid of the begging phenomenon for good. At the same time, we want to provide services for people that are forced into begging. In order to get rid of begging as a phenomenon, we need to help the children, women, and elderly that are forced to beg on the street.
Fighting the phenomena of begging by taking the beggars off the streets is a lot easier than dealing with the reasons that force these people to go into begging. One factor that has made it difficult to fight begging is the violence which has spread in the country for several years, killing thousands of fathers, thus forcing widows who are left with no providers into begging, not to mention the spread of poverty and unemployment.
Former Guantanamo detainee Benyan Mohammed has returned to the UK after being released from the US-run detention camp. He was questioned by the police on arrival. British officials now say Mohammed has been freed and faces no further charges.
A Pentagon report on Guantanamo prison ordered by U.S. President Barack Obama has concluded that the detainees have been fairly treated and in line with Geneva Conventions. But former detainees have a different account of what happened at the U.S.-run detention center. Benyam Mohammed, an Ethiopian-born British resident, returns to Britain after 7 years in U.S. custody without trial or charges. He spent 4 years at the U.S. detention camp in Guantanamo. Mohammed was arrested in Pakistan on a visa violation in 2002 and turned over to American authorities. Mohammed says he was tortured by CIA agents while in U.S. custody in Afghanistan and Morocco. He accuses the U.S. government of being behind his torture and says the British government was also involved in the abuse.
I have a statement here from Benyam Mohammed, which I would just like to read out for you. I have been through an experience that I never thought to encounter in my darkest nightmares. Before this ordeal, torture was an abstract word to me. I could never have imagined that I would be its victim. It's still difficult for me to believe that I was abducted, hauled from one country to the next, and tortured in medieval ways, all orchestrated by the United States government.
His lawyers say he had been seriously tortured while in U.S. custody.
Everything they have from him came after he went to Morocco, where he was severely tortured, beaten, threatened with his life, threatened to be raped, cut with a scalpel on his genitals, on his chest.
Other former Gitmo detainees share similar stories.
I think it's a barbaric place. It's a place they shouldn't have been set up. It's an international offshore, it's not in America, it's international offshore torture facilities.
The famous actor Dr. Hamoud Al-Harithi was honored at a celebration that spanned from the south to the east to the west of Baghdad. Al-Harithi said that the Iraqi talent is beginning to regain its strength, especially after the security situation stabilized, which Baghdad has begun to witness.
The actor's face appears to be older after his return. He's the only actor that remains alive from the cast of the Barber's Razor series. In order to celebrate the talent of Iraqi artists who have carved their glory in stone, this actor was honored by several governmental and civil organizations.
I am grateful to Al-Iraqiya TV and appreciate this beautiful crystal that represents a badge of honor and carries Iraqi movies on it. The blue award that is hung near my head is the most precious thing I've received from these organizations.
The reunion of Iraqi actors brings back joy to the people of Baghdad who have given the city their full potential.
الفنان عملة نادرة يعني في كل شعوب العالم عدد نفوسه بالملايين هناك.
The actors are exceptional. There's a small amount of actors in the world who represent their country and document its history. So this honorary celebration is a duty they have to fulfill, especially to honor the actors while they are still alive.
مو بعد مماتهم كالمعتاد اللي احنا نشوفه.
التكريم المعنوي. Giving artists mental and emotional support by honoring them feeds the brain and motivates the artists to create greater work. And this is why we honored the artist Hamoud Al-Harithi, so that we can guarantee that Iraqi art is still intact.
Appreciating the efforts of Iraqi actors and holding celebration in their honor, which are attended by artists and intellectuals from their generation, is the new direction that we are taking, which is to honor talented artists while they are still alive.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.